Our guest today, Kris Kelso, speaks on quieting the voice of self-doubt, something we all face in our lives. And in his book, Overcoming the Imposter, Silence Your Inner Critic, that came out in 2021, we interviewed Kris here on this podcast at that time. Well, he has worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and is the Dean of Entrepreneurship at the Professional Christian Coaching Institute, as well as other organizations. And we revisit the topic of self-doubt and imposter syndrome today as negative self-talk continues to haunt many, including entrepreneurs, business leaders, and yes, even company presidents. So stay tuned as we uncover some positive steps to overcome, or at least quiet, the voices of self-doubt. This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media and HalftimeSuccess.com, offering resources and insights for those at mid-career or the halftime of life. Explore our diverse categories, including courses, coaching, health, music, software, and travel. We're here to help you make this stage of life your best ever. So get our new articles, downloads, and podcasts by signing up for weekly updates at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, it's so much fun to have Kris back with us again. It's been several years, Kris.
Yes, it has. It has.
But it's great. And I know you have some new things to share with us as well. But the topic is just so relevant. It's timeless. What you're talking about is the imposter syndrome and with our self-doubt and, all of that in all of our lives. Doesn't matter what level we're at and what we do. So welcome. So I want to encourage everyone. I did write an article and I'm adding to that article. So make sure you look in the show notes. I will put all of that and of course, Kris's information in there as well. And he's also on halftimesuccess.com for his new course. We're going to talk about that as well.
Yes.
So, Kris, right behind you, if people are watching the video, they can see that huge blow-up picture of your book, Overcoming the Imposter. And we talked about that last time, 2021, it went back to. So describe for us how you described imposter syndrome. And it was really based a lot on your own life, but also how is that coming for you and how's the struggle?
Yeah. It started in back in the early 2000s when I started thinking about starting a business, going out, leaving my big corporate job and starting out on my own. And I had no business training or education whatsoever. And so I was learning as I went. I remember going to a large bookstore, if you can remember what those are. And I went and bought a bunch of books on anything I thought I needed to know to start a small business. And I just read a bunch and got to work. And so there was a lot that I knew I didn't know. And I love learning. I really enjoy it. So that was a fun time. It was an engaging time, so much joy, but yet there was this nagging voice in the back of my head that would tell me, there's something big that you're missing, or any minute there's going to be that thing that happens that you don't know what to do, or that people realize you don't know what you're talking about. You have the right credentials or experience, and they're going to figure out that you're making it up as you go. And so that's where it started for me. But I didn't learn until years later what imposter syndrome was. Like I thought that was just my own personal struggle, that I was the only one, that, it was something I needed to be quiet about and keep to myself, and it was a risk. And when I learned about imposter syndrome and started talking to other people about it, it was a huge relief to know that, oh, this is not only something that other people struggle with, it's actually more prevalent among high achievers. People like me who are entrepreneurial, who are trying new things, experience self-doubt at at a high rate. And it's actually a sign that you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. So that's a quick, summary of kind of where it started for me, but it became a mission and a purpose for me to help others like me understand that mind game that goes on and develop some tactics to overcome it, to quell those voices, to push through the fear, and to really even see it as a good thing at times.
Wow. One of the phrases that you just said just sticks out to me so blatantly. And it's especially prevalent among high achievers.
Yeah.
And people don't think, you see these beautiful models, you see these very talented, and inside they are just struggling, struggling. And I've known this because I've been in, the performance area, entertainment area for so many years. And I've known this. I've had some wonderful musicians. I was teaching a college course in music business. And I had a couple guests come in that were, amazing musicians and toured all the time. And they came in and a comment afterwards, they said, "Do you think we fooled them all?" I was like we really knew what we were doing. Because there's a lot of times you feel like you're just, kind of moving along by the seat of your pants. And it doesn't matter what you've done, how many credits you've done, you still feel that way at times. And it's just interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the sinister thing about it is that the very self-doubt that you have that makes you feel like, okay, I'm just faking it and I'm fooling everyone. It also makes you feel like I can't admit this to anyone or I'm going to be exposed.
Wow.
And so there are lots and lots of people, statistically, more than half, it's in the range of 70 to 80% of people experience this at some point in their life, but most people won't talk about it because they're afraid. They're afraid that they're the only one, and they're afraid that if they admit it, they will be exposed as a fraud, or people will say, "Oh, you don't have confidence. Well, then maybe you're not actually legitimate." And so this is why I felt so compelled to start talking about this very publicly, to beat the drum, to invite people to the conversation, to come on your podcast and have conversations like this, to let people know if you're struggling, you are not alone. And in fact, you're in really good company, because it is very prevalent among high achievers. And I've talked to many, many really successful people who say, "Oh yeah, I wrestle with that all the time. I have to quiet those voices. I have to push through the doubt."
It's so good to hear. I hope there are listeners thinking, "I needed to hear this today.
Yes.
I just really needed to hear this." And it doesn't matter. I'm going to joke here. I'll never have gray hair as long as I hope I will never have gray hair. I'll always fix that. But it seems like the more years we pile on, and the more gray hairs many of us have, that it doesn't go away. It kind of elevates sometimes, because then you think, well, people aren't going to take me seriously anymore, because now I'm falling behind. I'm doing quite a bit of writing on AI right now. And I'm falling behind technically. I'm falling behind in what the world is, and nobody's going to take me seriously, and who's going to listen to me anyway, and why even try? And all of those questions and those feelings are real. They are real. And we all deal with them. It doesn't matter how much research, how much we do. We think, well, now they're just going to think, oh, why listen to her? Why listen to him? They're older. They're not going to understand me. All of that. Those are the voices that are just going to constantly, be talking to us. And we feel like, well, maybe I have nothing to say. But that's not true. That is not true.
I've been in rooms and with groups of people where the younger people in the audience are intimidated by the more experienced folks, and the older, more experienced people in the group are intimidated by these young, energetic, creative, tech savvy. And it's just so funny, because what happens is that voice inside of your head knows your particular insecurities. And this is one of those things I really learned, is that imposter syndrome is not just one set of specific doubts. It's whatever doubts plague you personally. which means it's a very individual journey. Even though it's common among people, even though 70% of the population experience it, it's a very individual battle. And that can also make you feel like you're the only one, because surely these other people who are different from me don't have these same doubts.
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, no, they probably don't, but they have their own set of doubts. They have their own mental battle that they're fighting. And so talking about that helps us to recognize that it is a common experience, even though the individual reasons for it are very different and very unique.
Yes, really good point. And when we think about, gracefully growing older, and as we are continuing to work, I never want to quit. I love my work. But when we see a generation come up, many times they can kind of tout all of this confidence. Oh, yeah, well, I'm up on everything. But it's a facade many times. It doesn't go very deep.
Yeah.
It doesn't go. It's just because they've been on the tech for a while, but it doesn't go real deep. So you understand there are those insecurities, and it helps us if we just understand that and have a little bit more empathy and reach out to those people, because I think that's a very helpful thing. So we've talked a little bit about that. Next question that I have, is it like still as prevalent today? Of course, I think it's grown a little bit in many ways. Because of technology and of the speed of technology and people feeling like they're being left behind and they're never going to catch up. And, some of those things, I think at least it's more blatant that people are admitting now, they're
there is a lot more conversation about it. And you mentioned the tech, and that's interesting because the tech has a double-edged sword. On one hand, technology and access to lots and lots of people, and particularly social media, have created, have exacerbated what I call the comparison trap, where you have a lot of highlight reels of other people's lives to compare yours to, and it's very easy to slip into that feeling that you don't measure up, you don't have it as good, you're not as successful, you're falling behind. But the upside of the technology and this connected world that we find ourselves in is it is easier to find people who you can identify with, and voices like mine who are saying, hey, this is not a unique problem to you. This is a conversation we need to have. I've had the great joy since my book was published of talking to people on almost every continent. I've run group coaching programs in Africa. I've spoken to people in lots of different cultures and communities about this problem. And I'll admit to you, Deborah, that when I published the book, most of my research and study and the people I talked to were based in the US. And so I really kind of had this question mark. Is this a US cultural problem, or is this a global human problem? But since the book has come out and my audience has expanded and I've been able to talk to people all around the world, I can unequivocally say that this is not a cultural problem. This is not a United States American problem. This is a human problem, and people experience it in almost every culture that I've engaged with. I've found somebody that says, yeah, I wrestle with that kind of self-doubt.
Wow. I mean, that's powerful. That is really, really powerful. That it is a global epidemic, pretty much, of that happening. So, when you're talking about people around the world, you have expanded your book to really include an online course now. And I had mentioned that, when we first started here. How have you been able to really expand what you've said in a book? Because it's so funny. I'm a writer. So, you finish a book and you go, wow, I could already do a second version of that. And, in a couple years, you think I could update some of these statistics and, excuse me. I mean, if we did that with all of our products, it'd be really tough. So how have you, what have you done with the online course? That's the beauty of online courses, because you can update those so quickly and add more information. And of course, that's available on our halftimesuccess.com as well, as on your website. I'll put those links, but that'd be great to hear from you and how you've been able to add some things there.
One of the things that I heard very quickly when I published the book, people said that this book is really, really helpful. It's a game changer for me. I've had people tell me I've read it multiple times. I revisit it every year. And that was one of my goals, my great desires when I wrote the book, was that it would be something people would come back to and say, this is not just a great one-time read, but it's an ongoing resource that I tap into. But I had people say, I want more. I want a workbook. I want exercises. I want guidance to go through the ideas that are unpacked here. And how can I better put this into practice? And so I went through a couple of iterations. One of the themes of the book is experimenting and being willing to try things and even learn through failure and make mistakes on your way to success. And so I started experimenting with a couple of different formats. I created a quick and dirty course that was just me filming a couple videos, kind of doing a summary of each chapter, putting it together, doing a group coaching program with the videos, and then gathering surveys and feedback from people. And from that experience, running that group coaching program, some content bundle in, I learned a lot. And then I hired some experts in the course creation process, and we went much deeper and built a more extensive online learning program, so that someone who really wants to not just sort of understand what imposter syndrome is, but really dig into how to master it, how to overcome it, and how to identify it in other people and then help them. So I built out an online course that's got 20 plus lessons over 6 modules with a workbook that is around 75 pages, lots of exercises. And I've been continuing to add bonus features and additional downloadable content and worksheets and things like that to the course as people are taking it both either as an individual or going through it as a cohort. Some people are signing up in groups, doing it together, blending it with discussion time, and working on some of these things together so that the learning really sinks in, and it also bonds people together as a team. So that's been really fun to watch the evolution and growth of not only the maturity of the course itself, but to see the impact. And I've had some incredible testimonies, Deborah, of people who said, this totally transformed the way I approach my business, my career, and they're seeing an impact on revenue growth and taking bigger risks and, being willing to step into things that they were afraid of. So the impact has been awesome.
Oh, how fun. I love the team sort of, the aspect that you're doing teams as well. And I do that with one of my courses as well, my Hero Mountain Summit course, because the teams help with accountability. It helps with the communication, with people growing together. And especially if you have a leadership team, if you have, anyone that you're working with, that you are trying to move them along, business team together, it's very, very helpful. And it also can be just a group of friends going through, holding each other accountable for the little workbook, for what you're doing together. And I've come from, leading so many groups, clear from when I was in high school. I've always been one of those leaders. And it's so incredibly helpful to have the group dynamic and to hear from different people. Different people get different things out of it. And it's all of a sudden, oh, I can apply that.
Yeah.
Very wonderful that sort of option is available on your course. I'm so excited about that. It's it.
One of the things that really bonds a team together and builds trust is a shared experience that involves some level of vulnerability. Patrick Lencioni talks a lot about the power of vulnerability-based trust to build strong, healthy teams. And going through a program like this, and there are many others. I mean, there's lots of ways you can take on a learning journey together where you're identifying areas of growth and then holding one another accountable to do the work to grow and stretch and get outside your comfort zone. So, any program like that And I think this is a great one to experience together as a group is also going to have the side effect of bonding you together, building and enhancing trust, and making you a healthy leadership team for sure.
Right. Those are just wonderful. There's so much available. When people look online, they're going, oh, my eyes are crossing. And also with the team, with the accountability together, the statistics are a lot of people even sign up for these courses. They never even start.
Yeah.
In fact, my podcast coming as we're recording this week, coming out is, on having the courage to start. You've got to start. You can't just sit that. You keep, I'll start tomorrow. No, people put it off, or they do a couple lessons and that's it. But when you have a group together or you have some sort of accountability, it's actually why I don't do a lot of individual coaching, but I've added kind of an elite part to some of my courses because people need accountable. They need to know I'm not going to meet with you until you do the work because otherwise they don't get the value that you've poured all of this value in there. I want people to grow. I don't want to just sell. I want people to grow. I want people to move forward in their lives. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Otherwise, why? Why are we doing that? So, yeah. So let's outline some positive steps. We've really talked about how important that is to be accountable to each other and to share.
Yeah.
But what are some positive steps? If someone was to listen to this and they're going, oh, I'm struggling with this. What are a couple things I can do right now besides signing up for your course and getting your book?
Yes.
But what are some positive steps that people could take?
Well, one of the big mindset shifts that helps you to overcome that fear is reframing the way you think about failure and success. And the big shift is that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is an integral part of the process of success. And the way that works is that you reframe failure as learning. And so I have this mantra for myself that failure is only truly failure if I learn nothing. When I try something, when I experiment, when I attempt to do something new, like build an online course, I decide that there's only two possible outcomes for me. I'm either going to succeed or I'm going to learn. Maybe both, hopefully both. But at the very least, I'm going to learn something in the failure or mistake or setback, or, if it doesn't turn out the way I hoped it would, I don't call that a failure. I call that a learning experience. And when you approach it with just that simple mindset shift, you don't fear failure as much as when you're worried that failure is going to be a hit on your reputation. Failure is going to cause you to lose credibility. Here's something I've noticed is if someone talks about their failures, they worry that if I acknowledge failure or I talk about mistakes, I'm going to lose credibility. But if you talk about what you learned through failure, you gain credibility, you earn respect. People love to hear someone say, here's a mistake that I made, or here's something that happened. It didn't go the way I want. And here's what I got out of it. And here's what I'm doing differently now. Wow, your credibility in my mind just went up, not down. And so that simple mindset shift of failure is learning. There are only two outcomes, success or learning. And I can be willing, that going back to vulnerability, I can be willing and open to share mistakes that I've made if I attach the learning to them that helps other people and establishes me as a lifelong learner and somebody who's growing. That eliminates a lot of the fear of failure that people with imposter syndrome wrestle with, where they only want to step forward if everything's perfect and the chances of success are very high.
That is such an important mindset. So much of life is mindset.
Yeah.
It really is. It is so much. And I have a little saying that if you quit reading, if you quit learning, if you quit growing, you've really killed part of your life. It's just, you're not living your best life anymore. You're just, you've shut down. And if we quit doing many of those things, then we're not going to give ourselves the openness to fail even, and I've had so many chances to share of just how, I should have done it a little bit different, or I didn't get that, make that sort of goal that I had, but, I just restructured it. So
Yeah.
it's a mindset that you go through in all of this learning process. And I think that's so very important. And when you talk about even getting into your area and not knowing anything really about running a business, you've been a part of a business. There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in the field of just the gig economy for years, and nobody taught me how to run a business. I just kept looking for the next gig. And I kept working, just kept working. And when I started expanding my field, and then I figured out, I need to know some basic business principles. It started to really hit me when I had some college interns from our university. And I saw people that were these music majors, and I'm thinking, you're never going to make it in music. I mean, the 1% of the one, you're never going to keep working. And I told a couple of them, I said, get a business degree, because I realized at that point I needed a business degree. I was learning by the seat of my pants, and I was, what do I do next? And I'm reading everything possible. I had to teach music business. It's like, okay, I need to study business. I know the music field, but I need to study business. So I think that mindset of learning and admitting, well, boy, I made my mistakes, but now I'm going to try to help others at least, skip a little bit of that. But by admitting that, you become real. You're not that, you're not that sort of little trophy on a shelf. You're real. Yeah. And that's, so that's great with the, either it's success or it's learning. That's the failure is part of your learning. And that's
part of the journey.
A part of the journey. Is there anything, that's a great mindset. I mean, if people only applied that, that's transformational. That is actually transformational. Is there anything else of just taking that step of just personal growth?
Yeah, there's a phrase that is very difficult for people who are wrestling with imposter syndrome, or who are stuck in what I call proud insecurity, which you kind of described earlier. Yeah. Somebody that's acting very confident on the outside, but it's a mask for a insecurity, a deep-seated insecurity on the inside. I call that proud insecurity. And when you're stuck in that trap of trying to manage your image and look like you have it all together, there's this very simple phrase that's very difficult to say. And that phrase is, I don't know.
Whoa, yeah.
And so what I have made a habit of doing is be quick to say, I know. When somebody asks me a question and I don't have the answer, the temptation, and I've caught myself doing this, is the temptation is just to start talking and to try to find my way there verbally, to hope that if I talk long enough, I'll navigate to something halfway intelligent. It'll come. And the problem with doing that is you paint yourself into a corner when you start sounding like the expert when you're not the expert. And so, and that creates that fear. Oh my goodness, they're going to figure out. If I don't come up with the right thing to say, they're going to figure out that I don't have the answer and my credibility is going to be crushed. Yes. Well, when I start by saying, I don't know for sure, or I'm not the expert, but here's some ideas that I have. And that's the key, is I don't know doesn't have to be the end of the sentence. It's the beginning of the conversation.
Right.
I'm not the expert here, or I don't know for sure, but here's what my experience has been. Here's some things I've noticed. Here's a pattern I've seen. Or perhaps I don't know, but I know someone who's really good at this, and here's what they've told me. And so I'm relying on their judgment. And
yes,
the thing is, when you say that, you actually build your credibility.
Yes.
Because when you admit that you don't know something, you add credibility to everything that you claim to know. Because people know you're not just making stuff up. They know you're willing to acknowledge when you don't know something. And so by training myself to be quick to say, I don't know, when I really don't have the answer, But then to engage in conversation and brainstorming and ideating and all of that, it actually boosts my confidence that I'm not worried of someone figuring me out. I'm just laying it out there and being honest.
Yeah.
And I'm really walking in what I call humble confidence. The opposite of proud insecurity is humble confidence.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did a TEDx talk on the topic of humble confidence last fall. The video was released in January. So you can find that if you search for TEDx Kris Kelso. All about that juxtaposition of proud insecurity and humble confidence, and some simple steps you can take, including saying, I don't know, that will help you stay there.
Oh, I love that. I just love that. So it's really, I mean, we're all human. People are afraid to have conversations. They're afraid of getting put down. They're afraid of like sounding stupid. They're afraid of, a lot of things. There's a lot of fear there. And I think even the political arena had held many of us back of just saying, you don't want to get into arguments. You don't want to get into, that's a little bit, don't talk about, too much going there. So you really want to be able to have conversations. That's what this is our growth area in all areas. And we should be able to at least, share, our insecurities, what our beliefs are, all of those things I think are really important. That doesn't really discount. It's really, it depends on the listener. If they start discounting now, they discount my expertise, the stuff I've done that's their problem. It's not my problem. They're insecure in their own growth. And so they can't accept that there's somebody that's telling them something different. And I think that's a little bit too, I don't want to put people down, but at least it helps me understand, well, some people are just not going to be open at all because they are so insecure that they don't want to hear any even ideas. And so, understanding that people are people, we're all, kind of in that sort of a state. So with humans. Yeah. So, I like this, when you were mentioning a lot of this, that helps that authenticity as well. Because that's a big word right now, big buzzword. I think it's overused, because people are trying to be so authentic and, showing pictures of them with, just who knows what they're doing. And you're going, is that the same person? They don't have makeup on. They don't have anything. Who is this? Trying to be authentic. That's not what we mean. That's open up your heart a little bit with that authenticity and that sort of thing. So, and that's empowering in many ways, of just sharing that. So, well, Kris,
I think we can fall into the trap of trying to appear more authentic, which is just another form of managing your image, right? If you're like, people want me to be authentic, so I got to be more authentic. Well, now you're still trying to measure up to what other people want. So, I'm all for being authentic, but don't feel like you have to force it. Like, don't be authentic to meet someone else's agenda or to try to measure up to what someone else believes authenticity is. Just be yourself.
Right. I love that. Yep. I think that's a really good point. So what's next for you? I'm going to want you to share some, when people are just listening, they'll hear your website, they'll hear what you're doing, but and it'll be all in the show notes. I look at show notes all the time when I'm listening to podcasts these days. So I'm always kind of reviewing, okay, what did he say? What did he say?
A lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. So what's next for you?
Well, I told you that I did a TEDx talk on humble confidence, and I have a full keynote on that talk now that I've given 3 times in the last week. And I'm doing it again later this week for a company all hands meeting. And so it's really getting a lot of traction, this idea of, walking in humble confidence and developing these habits that keep you out of proud insecurity. So that's one of the bigger things that I'm doing this year is promoting that keynote talk and finding new opportunities to start that conversation. I've really noticed that one of the things that that I love to do is begin a conversation in an organization.
Wow.
So when I come in to talk to a group, I don't want to be a one-time event. I don't want people to say that was great, that was entertaining, that was fun. What I want people to say is we'll be talking about that for a very long time. Or that has changed the language and the culture in our organization, and we're going to be using that on a go-forward basis. And I'm hearing that more and more, which is very gratifying because, like I said, I don't just want to have conversations. I want to start conversations that go on even after I leave the building. And so that's my focus this year.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, that's what I love to do is being able to have a message and then have the follow-up,
Yeah.
I want people to grow. I want people, you don't want to just do a one-time, oh, that was great, and then go home and nothing else. So, but the continued growth is important. I think that's a great mission and a wonderful goal there. So, well, how can people contact you and get a hold of you? Yeah. So give us some of that information.
I'm really easy to find online. If you remember that my name starts with a K, KrisKelso, Kris Kelso. KrisKelso.com, overcomingtheimposter.com. That's the main site for the book and the online course. You can, of course, find me in the Halftime Success portal and program there. And I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook primarily. I'm on a few other platforms that I don't use quite as actively because I can't be everywhere all the time. But definitely on LinkedIn, I'm easy to find, Kris Kelso.
That's great. Yeah. Different platforms. I keep getting these requests, and a lot of times they're from my kids or the kids, they're in-laws, and it's like, okay, I don't have time for another platform. I'm so sorry. But
there's only so much time.
Only so much time. So anyway, Kris, this has been wonderful. Again, reminder, the show notes will be including the article that I had written, and I will add to that a bit from the last one we had coming out. And it was a great article and a great message that you gave with that. And and I'll put your last podcast on it as well, and look up your course. So excited for that on Halftime Success. That'll be the show notes. Will also be it'll be in the show notes. So thank you so much for being with us, and for all of you that have stuck with us all the way to the very end. I love this. Love the platforms of podcasts. I do a lot of them, and I just love the technology that we're able to have this impact all around the world. So thanks for joining me, and I will look forward to being with everybody again then next time.
Thanks, Deborah.
So, bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.